All right, guys. So we had a special election yesterday, and the results are actually really, really fascinating because it gives us maybe a little bit of a forecast for 2024. Like, hey, this is a little bit of a preview as to what 2024 might look like. So this is to replace George Santos. This is to fill George Santos' seat. Of course, George Santos is the world's biggest liar, and he's a Republican. And this is, I believe it's a district in Long Island in New York. So as you can see here, Ron Filipkowski says, Santos won this seat by 7.5 points. MAGA Mike went in there. Stefanik went in there. They made the whole campaign about the border, and they got destroyed. So Tom Suozzi, the Democrat, got 55.2%. This was with 73% of the vote in. Mazi Pilip got 44.8%. So a pretty solid, at least as of when 73% was like about a 10-point victory, right? Pretty solid. This is another example, call it for what it is. This is another example of a Democrat outperforming the polls. We've seen this time and time again. With the midterms, for example, red wave. It was more of a red trickle. They really did poorly, especially when you compare it historically to other similar circumstances. In special elections since then, not only have Democrats won, they've colossally outperformed the polls. So this is a MAGA or a Republican plus 7.5 district, and here you have the Democrat winning by double digits. That's a big deal, man. That's a big deal. So I'm going to get to my grand theory on this in a minute, but let me give you some more here. So Suozzi gave a victory speech, and he was interrupted before it started by Gaza demonstrators. Now, by the way, let's be clear. This guy's a horrific Zionist. So yes, the Democrat beat the Republican. The Republican would have been horrific too on Israel, but this guy's really bad on Israel. And obviously, he's not being given a pass for that. So here, I'm going to play a little bit of this for you.
Okay.
So they're saying he's supporting genocide. Look, to be fair, he's not yet, but he will be tomorrow. So let's just be clear about that. So Trump sees the results here, and he comes out. He's melting down. Of course, he's pointing the finger at everybody else. Republicans just don't learn. But maybe she was still a Democrat. Talking about Pilip, the one who lost. I have an almost 99% endorsement success rate in primaries and a very good number in the general elections as well. By the way, that's not true. In general elections, his candidates have gotten draxed time and time again. But just watch this very foolish woman, Mazi Melissa Pilip, running in a race where she didn't endorse me and tried to straddle the fence, when she would have easily won if she understood anything about modern-day politics in America. MAGA, which is most of the Republican Party, stayed home, and it always will, unless it is treated with the respect that it deserves. I stayed out of the race. I want to be loved. Give us a real candidate in the district for November. Suozzi, I know him well, can be easily beaten. So she's going after this one for not being sufficiently MAGA. This person is a Trump supporter and backed Trump in 2016 and 2020. Maybe they didn't come out and endorse him yet now, but so what, right? So what? This is a Trump supporter, Trump policies, and lost. Look, he's the king of deflecting. He's the king of pointing fingers at everybody else. But the facts are what they are, man. When you look at the midterms, every candidate that was more Trumpy lost. Every single one. Doug Mastriano, Carrie Lake, Blake Masters. The list goes on and on. All of the non-Trumpy Republicans actually won by solid margins. Say Kemp in Georgia. The more Trumpy they were, the more they lost. Anybody who leaned into election denialism, anybody who leaned into anti-abortion stuff, they got wrecked. They got wrecked. It's a fact. And these special elections, you got to call a spade a spade. These special elections, one after the other, the Democrats are cleaning house. Now, by the way, I want to give you this too because it's just funny. The Daily Beast says, George Santos mercilessly trolls GOP after Democrats win his old seat. He even took the time to text his former colleagues to call them fucking idiots. Oh, it's amazing. I love that so much. It doesn't even occur to George Santos that maybe there's like principled reasons to not want to have the world's biggest liar in there. Corrupt criminal liar, breaking all records, making Trump look like a fucking Boy Scout with his amount of lies. So I don't know. It's just funny to me that this guy, I told you, no, you're that hateable and you're that much of a nuisance and an albatross around the neck that they wanted to axe you even though they needed your vote, right? So look, what's going on here? It's very simple, guys. A lot of people will look at this result and they will say, this is good for Joe Biden. It's good for Joe Biden. Democrats keep outperforming in these special elections. Now, to be fair, I understand why people would think that. I do. The Democrats are doing well in these special elections. Biden is the top of the Democratic ticket. It stands to reason that, well, that's a great sign for Biden. Here's the problem with that, guys. And I can't tell you how many times I pointed this out. We've seen polls for the general election where you pit Trump against, quote, a generic Democrat. In those polls, the, quote, generic Democrat beats Trump by 13 points. 13. So my theory on this is it's not a win for Biden. It's a win for, quote, generic Democrats. What the fuck is Tom Suozzi? He's a generic Democrat. It's the most obvious thing in the world. So look, when you compare a generic Democrat to a MAGA Republican, the generic Democrat is going to win every time. They just are. Now, if you compare a generic Democrat to a generic Republican, that's a different story. That could be a close race. Maybe the Democrat will eke it out by 2 points or whatever, right? But that's how I view this. That every single time we have these special elections, it's a generic Democrat, usually against a MAGA Republican. And the generic Democrats have been cleaning house, just like they did in the midterms. So that's what I see. Now, it actually kind of worries me that the takeaway from a lot of people is this is great for Biden. Because in order to come to that conclusion, you have to be a massive poll denier. Because, he's got a 33% approval rating. That was his low. His average is like 37. We're talking about below Jimmy Carter at this point before he got destroyed, right? He's underwater in every imaginable way. He had 63%. No, what was the number? Maybe 70% approval with the Arab and Muslim American community. Now that's all the way down to 17%. He's losing Latinos by 4 points. He was losing young people by 4 points in one poll. I mean, on the specific issues, whether it be immigration or the economy, you name it, on all the specific issues, Biden is losing to Trump. So, all of the evidence matters, guys. All of the evidence matters. My takeaway from the Democrat beating the Republican here is, that's my point. Give me a generic Democrat for the election, not named Joe Biden. And that generic Democrat would almost certainly beat Trump. By the way, it also works in reverse. If you put a generic Republican up against Biden, the generic Republican would almost certainly win by a massive margin as well, right? That's my takeaway from this. I understand why people would think this is good for Biden, but it's just not. This is not. This is good for generic Democrats. It is. And guys, let's be clear. I'm not exactly the biggest fan of generic Democrats on policy. I think generic Democrats on policy are pretty shitty. I like progressive Democrats. That's my policy is leftist policy. But a generic Democrat, if that's what it takes to beat Trump, then for fuck's sake, what are we even discussing? What are we debating here? So, anyway, that's my breakdown of it. Generic Democrats are going to crush in the polls. They've been crushing in the polls. They've been doing a great job. And this isn't a massive Biden W, but that's what the media is going to take away from this. And it's going to be, another 9 months of them shoving their head in the sand and acting like Biden's actually really strong against Trump, even though all the evidence says the opposite. All right, guys, that's the show. That's the show. I love you all very much. You guys know the drill. Everybody, please click like, click subscribe, all that fun stuff. Click that bell icon so you get a notification every single time a video drops. This week on Crystal Kyle and Friends, we have Ryan Grimm coming in. We're going to talk about the crisis in Pakistan. We have election stealing going on out in the open in Pakistan. He has a lot of knowledge on that situation, and we want to learn about it and share it with you guys. And that's all I got for you guys, man. You can always support the show on Patreon or support on YouTube with the thanks button. You could tip with the thanks button. Never talk to an advertiser. Very proud of that. You guys help fund this show from the ground up. And everybody have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.